What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tien, and today we have a Slimes guide for beginners. The goal of this video is to explain how to play Slimes, and also there'll be a short section on how you would go about building the deck. And yeah, the main overarching goal is that we want to help out new players with a very beginner-friendly deck, because we've seen a lot of new players joining the game recently, and we think that's awesome, but there's not too much content that's tailored specifically towards beginners. If you're an existing player who's looking to learn Slimes, then hopefully this guide will also be helpful for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So why should you play Slimes? Put simply, Slimes are And yeah, that's pretty much it. Roll the outro. Nah, I'm just kidding. We're not quite done yet. But back to the main topic, why do we recommend Slimes for beginner players? Well, the deck is relatively cheap and it's quite easy to build, which I'll hopefully be able to illustrate when I try to explain this further later on. It's also quite easy to learn because the deck is straightforward and your game plan for most games is the same. But on top of that, it's hard to master. So as you begin to play the deck, you'll learn all of these really niche tricks that make the deck rewarding to play because it feels really fun to just learn all of these tricks. And the fourth reason is that the deck is competitive. It recently won a tournament in Singapore, one of the biggest tournaments of the MRC season. So it's definitely a good deck and it'll be rewarding to learn. Alright, so why do I keep saying that the Slime deck is easy to build? And the reason for this is because we have this product, which is a Sylvie Slime Recollection. I like to think of this thing as a starter deck on crack, because it'll come with a full playset of every slime card that you need, and it makes up roughly 80% of all of the cards that you need to build the deck. At the time of making this video, you could get this for about 90 AUD from any of your local game stores, if they have it in stock. It'll also come with a few other things, including 3 MRC packs, picture sleeves, life counters, and deck dividers. And on top of that, if you're an absolute Gamba god and you love RNG, there's a tiny chance that you'll get one of these, which is the Sylvie Slime Sovereign signature card. It looks amazing, and if you're lucky enough to get one, please let us know down in the comments and we'll praise you for being an absolute god. Once you've got your Recollection deck, here are a couple of budget additions that you can add to the deck to significantly improve its power level and its consistency. I'd highly recommend buying these as singles from either an online store or asking one of your local players, because that's the cheapest way to get them. In total, they'll cost about 20 AUD. I'll link a deck list in the description below, which only includes cards from the Recollection and these budget additions. And with this particular deck, you might not win every game against the meta deck, but you can definitely take some games off them. If you're a budget-conscious player, or if you're just looking to spend a small amount of money to try the deck before you go ahead and invest further, then I would recommend stopping here with your investment. With just that Recollection deck and these budget additions, the total amount of money spent is about 110 AUD, and for that much money, the power level of the deck that you have is extremely strong. However, if you're looking to push the deck even further and really make it a meta deck, then here are some of the other additions that you can add. So we've got the backup charger, the Quicksilver Grail, and the 4 copies of Dungeon Guide, which will total to about 190 AUD. If we add that with the Recollection deck and the budget additions, the total cost is about 300 AUD to make a full meta deck. I'll link a deck list in the description below, which will be a meta version of the Slime deck. Okay, so now that we have our deck built, let's go through how to play the deck. With this section of the video, I won't be describing what every individual card does, just because I feel like there's already plenty of videos out there that do this, especially deck list videos. And if I try to explain what every card does, by the end of it, you'd forget about half of what those cards were. Instead, My goal is to describe what all of the cards do collectively and how to use them collectively as a deck. And at the end of the day, if you want to learn what each individual card does, the best way to do this is always by playing the game. Because if you see a card you don't know, the best way to learn it is to read it on the spot and then use it on the spot as well. And yeah, at the end of the day, the best way to learn something is just by doing it, by playing the game. And to start off, I'm going to go through the elemental restrictions behind the deck, because these can be a little bit confusing at times. So before level 3, you can only play basic element cards, and these include Norm, Wind, Fire, and Water. The element of each card is written in the top right, or you can just look at the background color of the card as well. And then once you hit level 3, you can play pretty much everything else, which are the advanced element cards. So, for example, these have Crux, Arcane, Luxem, and Terra. This applies to both material deck cards and your main deck cards. So the way I tend to remember it is before level 3, you can only play Norm, Wind, Fire, and Water cards, which are names that you would hear in everyday life. And once you get to level 3, you can play everything else with the weird names that you wouldn't hear every day. Alrighty, now that we have the elemental restrictions out of the way, we can finally get into what to do during a game. So before level 3, you have two main priorities that you want to keep in mind. The first one is that you want to play efficient cards, meaning cards that replace themselves. The reason for this is because you're going to lose cards as you level up, and by playing efficient cards, you'll be able to keep your hand size high, so when you hit level 3, you have more cards to work with. Examples of efficient cards include Baby Grey Slime. This, for example, will draw you a card on enter, so when you use the Baby Grey Slime, you'll lose one card in hand initially by putting the Baby Grey onto the field, but then when it draws you that card, your hand will still stay at the same hand size, and we call this an efficient card, or some other people would call it a net zero. Forest Cake, Blissful Calling, and Gather Slimes all work in a similar way, where you'll use up that card, but then you draw or you add another card to your hand. There are a couple of trickier examples in the deck. For example, we have Baby Green, where you have to suppress a Forest Cake to make it a net zero. The way this works is, when you play the Baby Green and target the Forest Cake will get suppressed, but then at the end phase, it'll come back and trigger its on-enter effect again, allowing you to draw a card. So effectively, you've played the Baby Green, and then it's drawn you a card when the Forest Cake comes back, and that makes it a net zero. Another example, which is even trickier, is Baby Red Slime. If you use a Baby Red Slime, and then you attack with it and discard a card with floating memory, for example, Limitless Slime or Slime Eruption, that floating memory will later save you a card when you choose to level up. And in a way, that means that the Baby Red has netted you 0. The second priority that you have before you hit level 3 is to banish slime cards as you level up. And the reason for this is that the deck's boss monster requires slime cards to be banished to become stronger. I'll explain more about how the boss monster works later on, but effectively what this means is whenever you play a card and you have to pay its reserve cost, you want to prioritize putting slime cards into your memory, because these are the ones that will be banished as you level up. Once you hit level 3, Sylvie has a powerful on-enter effect where the next slime you'll play will cost 2 less and also gets 2 buff counters, so it'll just be a super buff slime. And what this means is you'll want to save one of the best slimes in order to use it the moment you get to level 3 to get a really strong power spike. The best options are usually an ethereal slime or a storm slime, so as you're leveling up, try to save one of these guys if you can. In this deck, the boss monster is Storm Slime. Its on-enter effect reads, deal damage to target unit equal to the number of slime cards in your banishment. So what that means is we want to get our slime cards here into the banish zone, because this will make our storm slimes hit harder than ever. There are two main ways that we can do this. The first being that we want to banish slime cards as we level up. I did mention this one earlier, where you want to put slime cards into your memory and then have them banished when you level up. The second way is that we can use a card called Gaia's Blessing. I'm particularly referring to this text here, where it says, you may banish 4 animal and/or beast ally cards from your graveyard to activate this card. And this will act as an alternate cost for the card, where you can only use it during your main phase at slow speed. The good thing about slime allies is that all of them are either animals or beasts. So this means that we want to get all of these cards into the graveyard, and then once they're there, you can use Gaia's Blessing to send them to the banish zone. And then that poses the next question. How do you get your ally cards into the graveyard? Well, there's one of the ways you can do it is as you play the game and play out your slimes, your opponent might kill them, which will put them in the graveyard. But that's a bit unreliable because they just might not kill them. So the next way is we can use Stone Scale Band, which has this effect where it says, discard up to 3 ally cards from your hand/memory. And by discarding, you're sending them from your hand or memory to the graveyard. This is great because it means we can get our slime ally cards from our memory into our graveyard and then use Gaia's Blessing to banish them. Once you've successfully activated Gaia's Blessing after all of that, all you need to do is play a couple of these bad boys. And then that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching the video all the way to the end. I hope that it was helpful for you, and if it was, please leave a like or a comment down below, because that will help let us know if we should continue to make this kind of content. If you've got any questions for me, feel free to send me a message on either Discord or by leaving a comment down below, and I'll answer them whenever I can. I'd like to give credits to the artist who drew the little chibi slimes and the breakdancing Sylvie. Her name is Chocofelicy, and she does some amazing work. I'll leave her socials in the description down below. If you're interested in checking out a more in-depth slime guide, I'd recommend checking out Chess Club's Deep Dive into Slimes video. I'll link the video here. In that video, Chess Club Noel does a fantastic job of explaining the uses of each and every card in the deck. Once again, guys, my name's Tien, and thank you very, very much for watching the video all the way to the end. Peace. Hey Jason, you think we should do a proper outro?
Nah, this is funnier.